Hello, nerds and geeks. I'm the real Dill, and we're looking at Suicide Squad Reimagined. Suicide Squad was sped through development to come out between Batman v Superman and Justice League. It had a very quick turnaround on the script, and then much of the third act and other pieces were reshot for post-production. David Ayer, the director, helmed the reshoots, but he prefers his original footage. And finally, a trailer company was responsible for the final edit of the film, which destroyed its Act 1 and overly trimmed character interactions. And this direction came with tossing a bunch of pop songs that hardly worked beyond a superficial level in order to capitalize off the popularity of the trailers, as well as likely Guardians of the Galaxy. One particular element of this troubled production that's relevant to my reimagining of the story is that the Justice League villain Steppenwolf was originally intended to appear in this movie, as well as his parademon army. Now, the lineup for the DCEU film slate got a lot of criticism for rushing into competition with Marvel's Avengers. Some will defend DC for doing something different by not making a solo movie for each major character before the big team up, but I guarantee you that rushing to compete with Avengers was indeed a major part of the decision making behind the scenes. But that's not to say that I don't think this is a really good setup for a limited run series. Man of Steel introduces the audience into this world and introduces that world to superpowered individuals, chiefly Superman, who will continue to be a central figure. Next, Batman v Superman folds in major players for the coming events and positions their conflict to be with Superman, further expanding this world's view and opinion of the character. Then we follow with Suicide Squad and Justice League as the world is reeling with the loss of Superman, and we see the government's and Bruce Wayne's respective teams meant to supplement that loss. In between those two films, we get Wonder Woman, which, and you'll hear this in further detail in the next episode, should have expanded our understanding of magic in this universe as it relates to the coming Darkseid conflict. So looking at how Suicide Squad is supposed to function within the overarching DCEU story, I just find it ludicrous that they had the right idea about how to use Steppenwolf, Darkseid's uncle and disgraced general, and they threw that away. Instead of giving us this guy, which everybody forgot about, Suicide Squad should have been about the government team failing to prevent Steppenwolf's invasion and then passing the torch to the Justice League in hopes that they can quell it. That brings us to that dumb after-credit scene where Bruce meets Waller and she hands him the very same files he already stole from Lex Luthor. That serves no purpose for anything. No. What should happen, and I don't expect everyone to get behind me on this, but what should happen is Amanda Waller recruits Barry Allen to be part of this task force. Now, she has dirt on him for trespassing and theft and how he pieced together his suit from NASA scraps, as well as some other infractions for sure. But the hook that she dangles for him is, succeed in this mission and your dad is a free man. But of course, the Suicide Squad fails, no free dad. But Waller really has no intention to incarcerate Barry, especially with the global security concerns she has, so she hands custody over to Bruce Wayne. You may notice that I'm overlapping the ending of Suicide Squad with the beginning of Justice League. While Bruce was in Iceland trying to recruit Aquaman, Enchantress successfully brought Steppenwolf and his parademon army to Earth. But while they are seemingly unstoppable, they're not going to be this massive force. So they vanish to plan strategic attacks. No one knows where they've gone, but we all know something major is going to happen. Waller's team is devastated, but this massive threat isn't looming high enough yet for her not to face the PR disaster incoming. Therefore, handing off her biggest asset, Flash, to Batman and to Wonder Woman is not only a good option to her, but an absolutely necessary one to make. Boom! Instantly, this movie works so much better within this universe. It sets the scene really well for Justice League and lays out seeds for the rest of this Darkseid invasion that'll be visited upon later on. And before moving on, let's touch on Enchantress's motivation. Instead of wanting to send humanity back to the Dark Ages so they'll worship her as a goddess again, she wants to punish humanity for how she's been imprisoned and now being used. She says Zeus was wrong about them and that they deserve to be ruled over, trodden upon, and imprisoned as they have done to her. This, of course, has her seek out Darkseid, and thus, as Lex did, reach Steppenwolf. If you want to see a better version of Suicide Squad, well, then watch The Suicide Squad. Not only does it have better, fully formed characters and dynamics, but it better pulls off the actual premise of supervillains forced into government black ops team to do shady stuff. So there, that's a decent blueprint to make Suicide Squad stand on its own as a better movie. I'm also being kind of lazy here, and that's because, well, I don't want to rewatch Suicide Squad, not again, and not even for this. From memory, Flag needs a stronger characterization, and I don't think developing the love relationship would fix it. See, if we look at the sequel, he works as the team's conscience, and that's because his heart isn't tied to one specific person. He has more of a general love for humanity and for doing what's right. His dynamic with Deadshot was good. Let's expand on that. He comes to respect the guy and empathize with him, which then leads to him understanding the rest of the Suicide Squad and looking out for them. He starts the movie as Waller does, not looking at them as humans, but by the end, they're all his friends. And yes, that's in the movie, but all those interactions are really cut down, and so it's not really there, and I think the writing could have been stronger to begin with, too. While I do kind of like the secret objective actually being about saving Waller herself, I think we can do better with that, too. Enchantress was her lapdog test trial, which won her Task Force X. Have the true mission be about destroying all evidence that Enchantress caused Midway's destruction, including assassinating the witch herself, and they succeed at covering up Waller's involvement, but don't kill Enchantress in time. Steppenwolf gets boom-tubed in, she goes off about how Darkseid will be pleased, and her handing his prize over to him. This of course leads to Steppenwolf chopping her head off, because he's not going to be sharing the credit for this one. Also, Enchantress is going to set up in Midway because following Batman vs. Superman's events, in particular Lex Luthor's communion with Steppenwolf, we learn that Apocalypse has been searching for Earth for millennia, but it's hidden. The only way to bring them here is to use one of the 3 mother boxes, which were left behind from their last invasion attempt. We get some of this information because Luthor has been debriefed by the government, all this being super classified and part of Waller's argument for the task force. The mother box at Star Labs is being moved from Metropolis to Midway City, and Enchantress turns coat and snags it while in transit. Adding to this plot, Barry gets tired of playing things slow with the team, and he runs out ahead and finds himself in a trap, and he is then used as a power source to open the boom tube. So his failure here, it follows him into Justice League. He carries a real chip on his shoulder. And now he really needs Bruce's guidance and wisdom as a leader. Him being the savior of the team and world later on in Justice League, which no one knows about, is now a sweet payoff to him being the big reason the world was almost lost to Steppenwolf in this movie. Now, I'm not going to get into all from the Ayer cut that should be restored into this, such as putting Joker back into the Act 3 conflict, or how specifically to better the team and individual members. Somebody will have to pay me to dig into all of that. And speaking of digging, there should be so much more Digger in this movie. Give Digger more screen time, more boomerangs, more back and forth between him and his superhero counterpart. More being, well, Digger. And I will say the one major thing wrong with James Gunn's The Suicide Squad was reviving this ugly, pathetic Weasel instead of this beautiful, charming Weasel. That's all I've got. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any thoughts on how to reimagine Suicide Squad, or if you have any suggestions in general, let me know in the comments below or visit mcmdebates.com. I'm the real Dill. Goodbye.